Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission / Local Planning Agency. Today, Thursday, May 5th, 2022. Call to order. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Yes. Ms. Kitchen? Here. Mr. Simmons? Present. Ms. Cottenberg? Here. Mr. Carter?
Present.
Ms. Jordan? Here. Ms. Lucier? Mr. Lucier?
Here.
And Mr. Alvarez?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have some announcements this evening. Mr. Cristino is excused. Ms. Battles and Ms. Jordan will be voting in her place. Okay. Next on the agenda, approval of minutes. Commissioners, do we have any modifications? Okay.
Chairman, before you make that motion for the minutes, we wanted to point out we put by your chair and required on the form we are to read this into the record. This is regarding our last meeting when one of our commissioners, Ms. Battles, had to step down for conflict of interest.
Okay.
And so she did file this form, the required form.
Okay.
It states that we have to make it a part of the minutes, which it is on the original that Mr. Alvarez has, and we are to read it into the record before you approve the minutes at this meeting. So Ms. Battles at that time, as you can see the form in front of you, she stepped down because it inured to her special private gain or loss. She does work for Kimley Horn, who was involved. They are a consultant helping us with those land development code amendments. Even though it is a different office, at this time she needed to step down and declare this conflict of interest. So we're reading this into the record, and it will be a part of the original minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was going to ask you about this. So, do we need to read it, or it's just put there as a part?
I think we're good. Yes.
Okay. Good. All right.
Excuse me. You made the announcement that Ms. Battles would be voting in
No, Ms.
someone's
Battles
vote.
is excused from tonight's
Okay,
meeting,
she's
and Ms.
excused.
Jordan will be voting.
Okay, thank you. I
In
just
her
wanted to
place.
clarify.
Yeah,
that.
no problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, approval of minutes.
I move the
have a motion.
minutes for the April 21st meeting be accepted as submitted.
Second. Mr. Simmons first. Okay. All right.
Call for the vote.
You have a phone, please?
Call for the vote.
All right. Can we have a vote, please, on that? On the minutes?
Voice vote.
Voice vote, please. On favor?
Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Good. Thank you. All right. This evening, we're going to now close, right, Mr. Anand, the Planning and Zoning Commission and open up for the local planning agency quasi-judicial public hearing.
Mr. Alvarez, you will remain as the Planning and Zoning Commission
Oh,
for
well.
site plan review. Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right, good. And next here, any commissioners, do we have any ex parte with this?
I have none.
Site
No.
plan this evening? Okay, good. Mr. Attorney, can you swear in all the intended persons? Have actual information, please.
I think at this time, the city attorney will read in the item
Okay.
into the record, and then he can swear in anybody
Please do.
that's going to be speaking. Read the item into the record first.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a quasi-judicial public hearing for a site plan modification and conditional use permit for Calvary Chapel Sebastian, 1251 Sebastian Boulevard, proposed construction of a 7,420 sanctuary addition along with parking, utility, stormwater, and landscaping. PS, open paren, public service, closed paren, zoning district, CR 512 overlay district.
Thank you. Mr. Onan, would you like to swear in Ali, I guess,
Sure, I'll swear them in.
or do you want me to?
You can swear them in, or I can swear them, doesn't matter.
Okay, no problem.
Me or you?
Okay, anyone,
Want me to swear them in?
please.
Okay. All those who are going to testify today, please stand, raise your hand, right hand. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, to help you guide testimony about to give at the planning and zoning meeting today, so help you guide? Or
Yes.
so affirm, yes?
Yes.
Witnesses have been sworn in.
Thank you. Sir, would you like to come up and make your presentation, please?
Good evening, Chairman Alvarez and Board. Good morning. My name is Ryan McLean with MBV Engineering. We're the acting engineering consultant for Calvary Chapel Sebastian. Looking forward to bring this before you for site plan modification and conditional use approval. Operating originally as United Church of Sebastian for many years, Calvary Chapel came into understanding of the property and basically seeking to modify and expand the facility to meet the current congregation growth that they're seeing today. Ultimately, the project's been through a substantial amount of back and forth with staff approval, and I think the project, as we put forth in front of you, well meets the requirements of the City of Sebastian, and will do much to improve the facility going forward. There's a substantial amount of, beyond the sanctuary expansion, site, stormwater, utilities, combination of all those. And if you have any specific questions to touch on, but other than that, I'm hopefully want to walk with the staff on approval and answer any questions you may have. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Staff, would you like to present your findings and analysis, please?
Let me verify that Ryan is right. We've had a bunch of back and forths on this project. We lost a planner in the middle of a project and a city engineer. So there's been some change of reviewers. And it's nice to see I'm presenting a lot of the congregation here because I know they've been waiting for this project to come before you so that they can proceed. We've reviewed the plan. I'm going to go over a little bit of details that are in our staff report to kind of put them as part of the record. And of course, then if you have any additional questions, myself or Ryan will be here to go over them. What this is a request for a site plan modification and a conditional use. Churches are conditional uses in the public service zoning district. So we've included that information, the conditional use criteria that the original church had to meet, and we also have to verify that now these additions also meet that conditional use criteria, which is on a page in your staff report. This is an expansion along with some parking, landscaping, lighting, and stormwater improvements. This is the former existing site of United Church of Sebastian, and they have combined with Calvary Chapel. In 1992, there was a phased site plan that was approved. Portions of that site plan were built and constructed. There was a multi-purpose building that was kind of used as the sanctuary and their community room. I believe in 1996 then they added what became their sanctuary now, and they have their community room. No other phases were completed since then. At that time, though, the stormwater was calculated, a master stormwater, for the entire build-out of those phases. And that stormwater pond and that system was designed and constructed. And so that's why you'll see on your current plans, there aren't a lot of changes to the stormwater design and the size of that pond because it had already been designed for complete build-up. Pretty much what you see today in your plan. That being said, we have the square sided of the site. We did break it apart because the property, the lots do go into the center of the lake. So we had them, there is a total site square footage, and then we have the development area, which is just that upland area and does not include the water. So all of our stormwater building coverage, your open space, and your pervious is just for that upland area, does not include that lake area. The setbacks do meet the requirements of both the public service zoning district, and there are specific setbacks required for the conditional use criteria. They had to be 30 feet from any line that's abutting residential use or district. So they had this increased setback. They do meet all of those setbacks. building height in public service is 35 feet. And as you can see from the elevations, the new building addition does go to the max of 35 feet, but we did have them, per the overlay, they've added parapet, pitched parapet on it, and the design is as close to the design of the existing building that's there. Regarding seating, we did have the parking calculations from the original 1992 plan has changed. It has gone, if you want to say down, in the recent years since 1992. And so we recalculated the parking per current codes, which they do meet. However, parking for church is calculated on maximum capacity established by the fire marshal. That is also reviewed and considered based on if you have fixed seats, meaning seats that are fixed such as pews or chairs that are bolted down to the floor. That is not going to be the case in this sanctuary. They're estimating 350 seats, but they're not fixed seats. So the fire marshal determined and the architect determined a maximum capacity for all areas, the assembly areas, which is the fellowship room and the assembly room and the sanctuary, and parking was based on that maximum capacity, which was 559 occupants. They're required 140 parking spaces. They are providing 145. Now, there's a caveat to that, though, that when this plan was reviewed by Indian River County, they are requiring anything more than 350 seats, may have to do some 512 improvements. So they have kept their maximum seating at 350 seats so that at this time, they're not required to do any turn lane improvements onto County Road 512. And I'll discuss that a little bit more when we get to our conditions, because we do have a condition regarding that. So they are providing 145 parking spaces. Our code does allow uses that have infrequent uses to provide some grass parking. And as you can see, most of their parking spaces are going to be grassed. We did require some of these spaces to be paved. They're providing 21 paved spaces. Our code also states, though, that if in the future, if the infrequent use of these spaces becomes more frequent and there's more events or programs at the church where there is more of a daily and consistent use of these grass parking spaces, the city, through the Planning and Zoning Commission, can require some of those grass spaces be paved. And we had that just noted on the site plan. It's the same note and the same condition that we also had on the American Legion site plan for some of their grass parking spaces. But otherwise, all drive aisles will be paved on that site plan to get to those grass parking spaces. I'm just continuing through the staff report. Sign, there is the existing sign that's up front by 512 will be replaced with a newer sign. A portion of that sign is in a proposed utility easement. And so even though that's a separate permit, at that point we would need just some sort of verification from Indian River County that they're okay with that sign being partially into their easement. Based on the plat for Roseland Acres, similar to Sebastian Highlands, there are side yard easements on these 4 lots. At first, we weren't sure that they had been abandoned. We found that when the original site plan came in 1992, those easements were formally abandoned through a resolution. So there is nothing that we need to do for the existing easements and this new building addition that's being added onto the site. I had kind of gone in that the stormwater design has already been designed and installed to back in 1992 and 96 to meet maximum impervious build out of the site. We did want to note, and we've added some notation onto the demolition plan regarding maintenance of that stormwater pond. It needs a good clean out. There's a lot of exotics and some muck that have been in there. And so as part of their land clearing and demolition permit, they'll go in there and get that pond back to original functionality and size as it was designed. This is going into then the conditional considerations is where we note the criteria of the conditional use. Minimum lot sizes, minimum lot width, the setbacks. There is an attached letter from MBV representing the applicant that notes on how they feel that they meet this conditional use criteria. And also per the code, there are some findings of facts that the Planning and Zoning Commission should consider to grant that conditional use permit. we feel that the conditions have been met, and that the conditional use permit should be granted. However, one of the criteria is that all side and rear yards abutting residential districts or uses shall be screened with an opaque buffer. Right now, there are a lot of and very good opaque natural landscape buffers on those sides that are required to have that buffer. However, during the land clearing permit, we do always require that the pepper trees are removed off of a site when they're doing an improvement like this. So we wanted to make sure that when they take out those pepper trees, if any areas in those natural buffers become unopaque and not meeting the condition of this conditional use, that we would require them to either put some fencing or some additional landscaping in those areas where those pepper trees came out. And that you can see as a condition of approval that we are recommending. I think they should be okay. There's still a lot of, between the pine trees and the existing oak trees and some of those scrub palmettos, I think there's not a lot of pepper trees on that site, and they should be pretty good with those natural buffers. I'm not sure if there's any other residents here today, but we did have a resident that got a surrounding property letter, and that was her concern. They did live on the lake. She was across the lake, but that was their concern, that they were going to lose that natural buffer. So we did explain our condition, but that was a concern of a neighboring resident. We had mentioned about the 350 seats for Indian River County. So we are also requesting as a condition of approval that at any time that they are going to expand above the 350 seats, that they would submit an additional site plan application modification, and at that point, city can re-review for parking, and we could then forward the plan and the information to the county for their review for traffic improvements. The only other additional consideration we had was that on some of the site visits that staff did, our environmental staff noticed that there is a well in the lake that is cracked, an artesian well, and at this point, the applicant hasn't decided if they're going to cap that and try to fix it and use it, or go ahead and cap it and remove it. We had just gone into that we would like that to be decided before the end, before we issue a certificate of completion, and whatever associated health department permits that we need with that would be taken care of before they're able to use the sanctuary. So in conclusion, staff feels that this plan is consistent with our comprehensive plan, our land development code, and the overlay district requirements, and we are recommending approval of both the site plan and the conditional use, and there are 4 conditions of approval that staff is recommending. I'd like to just read those into the record, and then we can refer to those if you would like to in your motion. Condition number 1 is opaque buffering must be provided along the eastern, southern, and southwestern boundary lines. If the existing natural buffer ceases to be opaque after removal of invasive plant materials, or plants and trees become weakened by age, storm, fire, or disease, additional buffering, which can be landscaping or fencing, must be reestablished along these boundary areas. Buffering will be verified at final inspection and must be in compliance before issuance of the certificate of completion. Condition of approval number 2 is if additional seating is added over the proposed 350 seats, Calvary Chapel shall submit a site plan application so that parking compliance can be reviewed by the city and traffic improvements by the county. Number 3, the existing well located in the stormwater pond shall be examined and determined if functional, and either abandoned or capped before issuance of the certificate of completion. And our last condition of approval is the separate site sign permit for the monument sign will need approval from Indian River County Utilities for its partial location within their utility easement. And again, if you have any other further questions on some of the sheets, some of the design, Ryan and I are available for questions.
Thank you, Dory. Okay. Commissioners, do we have any questions of the applicant or staff?
I do.
Okay, well, you want to start? You want to start? Okay,
I'll
I'll
start.
give you the floor.
I have 2 concerns. My first concern is the open seating. How do we verify that we're not exceeding the 350 and heading toward 600 with open seating? We've got, I mean, it's really a big space. And I also have a question of, and I'm sorry, I don't recall, does this organization run the periodic flea markets?
We've not had any applications for flea markets or anything for those Saturdays from Calvary Chapel
Okay.
in the past year.
Okay, because when the original plans were approved, that was 30 years ago, and things were very different then.
Okay.
And I'm concerned about that. I am extremely concerned about a cracked well housing that could be sucking contaminated water.
Right.
I think that, I really feel strongly that that should be taken care of regardless of when. That should be part of the deal.
Yeah, so I can speak on that. So essentially, it's a cracked valve at the top end of a 2-inch well at the border of the wet detention pond. And what that is the applicant, as part of this process, is to cap the well, first and foremost. We're gonna cap the well immediately at the start of construction. It was only raised the point of if the well is to be abandoned. And if it is, the Department of Health is gonna come out and make a determination on how they'd like to do it. Ultimately, you can cap without a permit. It can ultimately just be capped, and it can be the end of the day legally. If they chose to see no foreseeable future to repair any kind of issue associated with it, then they can easily move forward with permitting for the abandonment and close the well out. So currently, it'll be capped at the start of construction, but in the process of construction, they're gonna make a determination to either repair the wellhead and make use of it, because it is an active well, and or abandon the well.
I understand all of those things, but to me, being a layperson, that comes across as kind of iffy.
Okay.
And I would like to have specific assurance, because in my line of work, I frequently get to deal with properties that, through nobody's ill will, have become contaminated, and it becomes a problem forever, and it never gets cheaper to fix.
Rightfully so. No, this individual, I mean, for example, you can imagine this client's investing heavily into this property and would see no benefit in contaminating the soil for a future, for themselves for many years to come, or ultimately an additional. It's not seen as a foreseeable concern. That's why ultimately they can cap it for the immediate response, and then they can make a determination, because reasonably it's been operating as a well for many years. And right now, much like well at your property or well at anyone else's property, can be repaired and fixed under no permitting obligations of the individual. But I guess the question to you would be, what level of comfort are you concerned with? Are you saying I would prefer for it to be abandoned and that would give you a level of comfort?
I would like assurance that it is not going to be sucking contaminated water into the aquifer.
Okay.
And the level of the water changes. This is Florida.
Most certainly.
And I've had some experience with issues throughout the United States.
Yeah.
And it's like, just because we can do it one way doesn't mean that we should do it that
No, rightfully so.
That's my question.
There's no operation seen here as walking a line of prospective contamination. Ultimately, you have a well adjacent to a wet detention facility that they realistically will plan to make use of, continue to operate as an irrigation source throughout the property, much like most wet detention facilities do. But if they see fit not to utilize that well location, it's going to be capped as part of the construction process, first and foremost. And then if not, then they will formally abandon the well. But either way, the decision happens as part of the construction process. You won't leave the site. The site will either be completely repaired or completely abandoned. There's only two options for this to go.
Okay.
If you're more comfortable, Ms. Cottenberg, we have it as a condition of approval so that it has to be dealt with before the certificate of completion. You may want to change that then, that it is taken care of and addressed during the demolition stage of the process. So it's dealt with as part of the first step?
Item number 3. That we're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know how deep the well is and if it's a flow well?
No, it's not a flow well. I don't know the exact depth though. I know it's just a superficial irrigation well. I'm sure of the depth. Probably around 60 to 80 feet if it was anything.
Ryan, I'm looking at your letter,
Yes, ma'am.
and I'm looking at item number 6, and you say no school or accessory residential uses are proposed?
Yes, ma'am.
Then why do you have all the classrooms?
Oh, just a Sunday school operation. Sunday school?
That many classrooms for Sunday school?
varying ages associated with the facility. You can imagine you have preschool age students to middle school, to elementary school, to middle school. You can imagine it's very much different to operate a school than it is to operate a Sunday school operation. And Mr. Bosworth made note that if the facility was to do that, A, it violates conditional use, but also B, would cause us to do significant modifications to the parking configuration. And the city, rightfully so, monitors the parking very adequately to see a growth if there was some kind of incorrect use of the facility. But from the way it's been presented to us, and the way that we've been, and the way that, on our side of the fence, the way the client's projected for the facility to be operated, it's not seen to operate as a Monday through Friday school operation. It's just meant for Sunday school and Wednesday nights, traditional church operation.
Okay.
Ryan's correct. It's similar to the Catholic Church too. It has some classrooms
Right.
for Sunday school. If they were to come back and say, we're going to do a private elementary school, Catholic elementary school, like St. Helens, that is what this is referring to. And that would trip a whole other conditional use review.
It just seems like a lot of classrooms for no school.
Rightfully so. And it may be maybe abundance of not only just classrooms for children during Sunday school, but also only adult Sunday schools at the same time, or something of that variety, however their congregation operates.
Okay, thank you. That's the
Thank
only
you.
question
Any
I
other,
have.
sorry.
I'd like to make just a general comment. I'm glad to see the property is going to be improved, and I know from the city standpoint, we appreciate the congregation investing in the community and in your church. So best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Mr. Simmons, any comments? Ms. Joy? No. Mr. Lucier? No. Any comments?
Public hearing?
Okay. Thank you. All right, now we're going to
Open the public.
open for the public. And first, we're going to do in favor of this project. And whoever wishes to speak, please, I will need you to spell your name and address. And I will also give you 5 minutes. I will time you here. So if you have anything less, fine. For 5 minutes, it's 10 minutes. So if we have anyone that wants to come up and speak in favor of the project, please do so now. Are you in favor, ma'am, or against?
I have a question.
Are you in favor or against?
Neither, I just have a question.
Okay, give me a second. All right, so nobody, all right, so ma'am, come on up, please. I'm in favor. All right, sir, thank you. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Yes, sir. Rick Morrow, M-A-U-R-O. Address 114 Salazar Lane, Sebastian. Thank you for this time.
Thank you.
I pray through God that he guides you in your decision here tonight. I'm a member of the church. I'm also a volunteer at the church. I live about 5 minutes away from the church. The church is growing. One of the questions that one of the ladies asked about the classrooms is we have many ministries being conducted within the church. And it's nice for them to have their own little separate areas where they can conduct meetings and business and teachings, and just all in doing God's work. So at this point, I would just like to suggest and recommend to you that you approve this project. I think it's going to be a great addition. God works great in this community, and we just need a little bigger space to do what God wants us to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in favor?
Good evening. My name is Craig Zeman. I live at 918 Oswego Avenue, Sebastian, Florida, and I'm one of the pastors at Calvary Chapel in Sebastian. And first of all, I'd just like to thank you all for your consideration of this project, and we're so thankful for what God is doing here in Sebastian. And we just want to be an integral part of the city and everything that's going on here. And we're just thankful to be here. We want to thank you all in advance for the approval of this project, because we know that God's doing great things here. And we're just thankful to be a part of it and thankful that you're a part of it as well. So thank you for your consideration. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Excuse me, Pastor, would you spell your last name for me, please?
S is in Sam, S is in Sam, Z is in zebra, E, M-A-N.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ma'am, you coming up? Now we have a question. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Actually, we need to ask for any opposition first.
Joanne Hall, Holl, 53 Blue Island Street, Sebastian. Our question is, we're residents directly across the street from the church, across 512 in the community of San Sebastian Springs. And our community only has 2 exits, one onto 512 and one off the back of our community onto Gardenia or Riviera. And our concern is the safety of us pulling out onto 512 when you have 350 or 200 cars at that church with no traffic light. And when anyone using that church coming on 512 has to do a U-turn back to the church, and that's where we come out right. We come out right at basically at the church. So we're just here to express our concern about the safety of us leaving our community with that size congregation right there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Do we have anybody that opposes this project? Please come forward now. Okay, so the applicant. Okay, Mr. Applicant, do you have any issues or anything raised by staff or that you'd like to mention now? Sir? Okay. Okay, staff, would you, any summarization?
Excuse me. I do want to just respond in that when we get a site plan in, especially one that is on 512, it is forwarded to Indian River County Traffic Engineering for their review of the curb cut, the driveway, any of that traffic information. There is a threshold of when they anticipate a certain amount of traffic that a full traffic impact analysis it has to be done. This did not trip that to have that full traffic study. But the plan was reviewed by Indian River County Traffic Engineering, and as you can see from their review, they have determined that the seating that is proposed is okay, but any additional adding to that seating will then trip another traffic review for a possible turn lane for that. So I just wanted to reassure that the residents that not only City of Sebastian, but Indian River County Traffic Engineering, who is responsible for County Road 512, has reviewed this plan also. Staff is, again, to reiterate, we are recommending approval of this plan. If you, in your motion, we would request that you also find the conditions indicated on page 7, that you find that this site plan does meet those, your findings and facts. And we recommend approval with the 4 conditions noted on page 8. And regarding number 3, if you would like that the timing of the well to be determined, if you need to change that, that would be, of course, as part of your motion.
Okay, thank you. Any more commissioners? You have any final questions on this?
I'm still concerned about that. When I read the letter, it says that this not requiring the turn lane is based on seating of no more than 350, and we don't have any way to
Count.
we're not going to stand there with a counter as people go in and out, and I think that this is really borderline, particularly because I know that area there are issues lots of times during the day, particularly on weekends.
But how long would that thing go last? Maybe an hour, 45 minutes, that roughly, I mean,
I have no idea because I don't know what their schedules are.
right.
It's like
Because
they
if you see
mentioned,
something all day, then, but if it's just like a moment, like an hour during the day or hour and a half, like
Well,
they
that's
do at
what-
church.
yeah, that's
St.
why-
Sebastian, I do know when there's something big like that, they hire a police officer to man the traffic.
yeah,
That's something that,
So with regards to the seating, though, because it was calculated on maximum capacity for the city requirements, they do meet that with the parking. As you can see, that's why we put it in your packet as an exhibit. The request to hold off that turn lane was kind of an agreement between the church and the county itself. That letter was directed to the county, and the response was back to the church of, hey, if you go over 350 seats, we're going to need you to come back and possibly redo this turn lane. And so that was part of road improvements kind of enforced by the county. The site itself meets all of the city requirements. As respect for that condition, we put it in as a conditional of approval. If it turns out that if any time that was found out that there were more seats than those 350 seats, they could be found in violation of their site plan, since you made it a condition of approval, and also in disagreement with the agreement that they made with the county. But that is more of a request of the county when it comes to that road improvement. The site itself meets city code, and our parking was based on maximum capacity, which they do meet the number of parking. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how we had to
I
look at it.
guess her main concern is like when you have everybody coming in and out at the same,
I understand about the city.
Seats.
she also.
I understand
Yeah.
about the county conditions, I understand about the city conditions. I'm just thinking about the human conditions of this is where we live, this is where we drive, this is where we go to the drugstore, this is where we go to the library, this is where we go out to Publix, and weekends can be hairy, and I think a turn lane is a good thing, and I don't have any problem if it comes in 6 months or not, but I don't like the idea of waiting until everybody is so frustrated, or we have some accidents that happen, or, and sometimes, because that's a very busy, the Roseland Road is a very busy intersection there, and it all kind of backs up around there, and lots of times there isn't even enough room in the turn lanes, as it is. So,
Usually-
and that's a county problem, but it's also our problem because we live here, and that's my concern about it. That's all.
But usually to be able to require road improvements, we've got a formal traffic analysis that can give us some data based on the capacity of the road and the expected turns, and we haven't even met that threshold to have to require that formal. So it would be very hard to require that turn lane now without that data to solidify that it's needed. We know it may be needed in real life, but the data that backs it up that requires it, we just didn't have it, and it didn't meet the threshold for us to have it with this site plan, and just as a condition that the county has required.
Thank you.
Louise, if it makes you feel better, based on the A102, you can see the layout of the seats. If you look at it, there's no room for standing room only. I mean, they're only going to sit
They're
in
not
those
fixed
seats.
seats. They're not fixed seats.
I'm sorry?
They are not fixed seats.
Well, yeah, but
Oh, so
there's not a lot
you
of
can take
room
them
to
off
put
and put them
extra
on.
ones. I mean,
It's a drawing.
we would have to go into every church and count the people
Well, that's what I mean.
based
We
on
don't
what
we don't
you're
want to do
thinking.
that. We don't want to do that.
And we wouldn't want to do that.
No.
So we have to trust them that they're going to do 350.
Okay.
Okay. Any other commissioners? Do we have any final questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Hold on, please. I do. I have one as far as where is, because I have a rendering here. Now, is these 4 of them or is this one? 'Cause I would like to know, because I know the church is in the middle. Now, where's this other addition going to be to the northeast or the southwest side? Sir?
So as you maybe perhaps to visual it as if you were standing on 512 facing the church, correct?
Okay.
Okay, so you recognize that they have the main church entry.
So it's going to be like this?
Correct. Imagine you're looking at it to your right, to the, it's only odd because the property's located.
Right, it's an angle.
Southwest, I guess you could consider.
That's where it's going to be
That's
the
where
addition.
sanctuary is, and then they're doing infill on the one piece that kind of.
I saw
expands the
that.
body. Correct.
But the additional is going to be on the
Yeah, the
southwest,
new piece will be to your
on the
right,
southwest
to the
area?
southwest side,
Okay,
yeah.
so it'll be like more here. Okay. All right, that's it. That was my,
You could presumptively west, it's.
right, because it's on an angle, correct. So it's more like southwest. Okay, that was my question.
Close the public hearing.
Okay, so, all right, so we're going to close our public hearing now. And we're going to do a motion now, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the site plan modification and conditional use permit for Calvary Chapel Sebastian, 1251 Sebastian Boulevard. Proposed construction of a 7,420 square foot sanctuary addition along with parking, utilities, stormwater and landscaping, public service zoning district, County Road 512 overlay district, which should include the 4 conditions that staff is recommending for approval.
I'll second that.
And also that the facts and findings for the conditional use criteria have been met?
I'm sorry?
That the facts and finding on page 7 for the conditional use criteria have been met?
Yes, on page 7, the fact and finding.
Condition. Ms. Kitchen, second. Roll call.
I did second.
Ms. Kitchen, second.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Kinchin?
Yes.
Mr. Lucier?
Yes.
Ms. Cottenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons? Yes. Mr. Alvarez?
Yes.
Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
The votes are 7 to 0 in favor. The motion carries.
Congratulations.
Hey, guys, got it. Thank you very much. Okay, moving right along. Unfinished business. We never closed it.
We did not?
We did.
Seeing none. Public input. Do we have any other public input besides what we heard this evening? New business? Need to hear none. Commissioners' matters. Commissioners, do we have any matters presented today?
No.
Nope.
Just
Hearing
want to
none.
welcome the new church, and I hope you get your 350 members. If you don't already have them.
City attorney matters, Mr. No?
No, Mr. Chair.
Staff matters?
Just that we will not have a meeting on May 19th, but then our next meeting in June, we should have another land development ordinance amendment ready for you. We have our new zoning district mixed use and our intent. We will also have ready for you to review. That'll be the first meeting in June. But we do not have a meeting on May 19th.
Thank you very much.
I would like to make one announcement. I want to wish all the mothers a happy Mother's Day that's coming up.
Thank you. Thank you, Mom.
We all owe everything to you.
We are adjourned.